Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of national governments and business, first of all, it's a great pleasure to welcome you here on our side event, Clean Energy Partnership Dialogue, a sustainable recovery for Ukraine, organized by the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine in close cooperation with the European Commission Directorate General for Energy and members of Clean Energy Partnership Initiative. My name is Katerina Knysh. I represent the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine and will do my best today to make this event as efficient as possible. You all may think that the Ukrainian event will start traditionally with a reminder about the large-scale war from which my country has been suffering for 2 years. But I would like to start today's event by reminding you that it is human activity caused all these global challenges that we are facing today, including climate change and loss of biodiversity. And Ukraine's experience is unique in this regard because Ukraine today has no other option but to become better than it was before the war, to become more energy efficient, more sustainable, more inclusive, because our existence depends on it. And that is why the recovery and relief also depends only on human decisions. And today, during this event, our high-level expert speakers will answer such questions like how much importance the developed states put on ensuring green and inclusive, sustainable recovery of Ukraine's energy sector, whether a country at war can slow down its climate ambitions and efforts, what is Ukraine's current progress in implementing essential reforms for clean energy sector rebuilding, and what does basically green recovery means? It's green money, green projects, or both. So the clock of this event is ticking as fast as the climate one, and I don't want to take the time of our distinguished speakers anymore. And I would like to provide the floor to the greatest supporter of Ukraine and one of our keynote speakers and the main host of this event, ladies and gentlemen, Kadri Simpson, European Commissioner for Energy. Please applause.
Thank you, Katerina, and dear German, greetings to Kiev. Nice to see you. I suspect that you don't see us, but we see you, so behave. and it is a very good opportunity to discuss today our partnership with Ukraine. It's now nearly 2 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and this unjustified and unprovoked aggression has caused immense destruction against our neighbor and our partner. From day one, our support to Ukraine has been resolute. It will remain that way after Ukraine wins the war and invading troops have withdrawn from Ukraine's territory. The EU and our member states have jointly allocated over 80 billion euros to Ukraine since the onset of this war. And just a few weeks ago, on the 8th of November, the European Commission took a decision, I would call it historic decision, to recommend the opening of accession negotiations with Ukraine. So my congratulations once again, because this decision is a recognition of the work Ukraine has done to align your legislation to the EU energy acquis despite being at war. This is truly remarkable. And it is now for the European Council next week to take the political decision to open the accession negotiations. And in this context, it is all the more important that Ukraine stays the course on market reform, making progress where there are still significant gaps. And looking ahead, the European Commission has proposed Also the EU-Ukraine facility. It is a groundbreaking financial initiative within the EU budget, offering up to 50 billion euros for the period between 2024 and 27. And this comprehensive package of grants and loans represents the most substantial aid package the EU has ever offered to a country that is not our member yet. And as EU Energy Commissioner, I am prioritizing support to Ukraine in the short and long term. So let me explain. Today in Ukraine, energy security is one of the most pressing priorities, and renewables are clearly an essential part of solution. Our Energy Community Fund for Ukraine has collected over 300 million euros from European member states, but also like-minded partners. And on top of that, member states and EU companies continue to provide vital energy equipment facilitated by Commission Emergency Response Coordination Center. Some of this equipment is already installed. Well, under our one flagship projects, we call it Ray of Hope, around 5,700 solar panels have been donated to Ukraine. And this is a way to encourage more decentralized renewable power production, which is less vulnerable to targeted attacks. And beyond this, our focus is on rebuilding Ukraine's economy based on sustainable principles. So I started today my day in the Ukrainian pavilion. I had this wonderful opportunity to witness signing ceremony of MOU, where Vestas, together with TDEC, agreed that Tuligulska wind power plant will be expanded so that it will be the largest wind power plant in Ukraine when it reaches full plant capacity of 500 megawatts. And I would like to encourage all EU companies and international investors to get involved in similar projects for decarbonizing Ukraine's energy system. And I'm confident that this event sent a signal that others can follow. And to encourage this, the EU is helping the government of Ukraine to come up with a medium-term strategic plan. It will set out the government's priorities in different sectors, the reforms and investment needed, how and at what time the deliveries will be visible. And on our side, we are offering Ukraine to be fully integrated with the EU energy market to boost both the EU and Ukraine's energy security. And this will be possible as soon as Ukraine implements EU legislation in the context of the energy community and in preparation for future enlargement negotiations. So, dear friends, dear German, Ukraine and EU are more closely linked than ever before. Already today, Ukraine is fully synchronized with the continental European network. This has not only facilitated increased trading capacity, it also means that Ukraine is now interconnected with over 400 million consumers in 24 countries, most of which are in EU. And our collaborative efforts are crucial for rebuilding and creating a sustainable, secure Europe together. So I look forward to collaborating with all of you, and we don't need to wait a moment more. This collaboration is already ongoing. Thank you.
Mrs. Commissioner, thank you very much for such valuable messages, and I would like to say such a courage pro-Ukrainian decision that the European Commission made during this war. And it's really important that all the investment in clean technologies that come from Europe to Ukraine show that the clean energy sector, it's not about the greenhouse gas reduction. As of today, it's first of all about the energy security and energy independence of country. So thank you very much for your support. And I know that you have a really tough schedule today. Perfect, perfect. So yeah, it's my pleasure to pass the floor to the Minister of Energy of Ukraine, who is online today with us. So Mr. Herman, if you hear us well, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's really a pleasure to speak at this event. And first of all, I would want to start with the gratitude to the United States for initiating this significant event, really what is very important. And of course, we appreciate all G7 partners, which really provided a huge technical and financial support to our uh, energy system. And of course, also very important that we have a new partners and the Clean Energy Partnership. And that is, again, that is a very important step for the future development of our green transition goals and how we see this. And especially in our case, I already mentioned this several times that what lessons we got from this horrible war and aggression of Russia against Ukraine, that we understand that the issue of uh, clean energy and green transition, that is not only about the ecology, it's not only about the generation of electricity, that is not only about the decentralization of generation, but that is one of the key questions for national security. And I think that that is the lessons which we got Ukraine during this war. It's really proof uh, this idea that we need to increase and this absolutely right direction which we are choosing to go through the green transition and to increase the renewables in the energy system of any country in the world. Um, I would like also, Kadri, to thank you personally for everything you did for Ukraine. And so it was mentioned many times, but I really want to stress that you are with us, you are with the first days of the full-scale invasion. You did an incredible job to synchronize Ukraine in 21 days during the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and now you already mentioned that we are fully synchronized with European grids, and that is also very important for us. At that time, it was the issue of survival because we disconnected 3 hours before the big war started from Russia and Belarusian grids, and we operated in isolation mode, which was quite dangerous in the issue of everyday attacks and the invasion. But now it's more again that is more the step to the future, and it's really it shows that we are moving to Europe. So we are moving despite the war, we are moving despite the shellings, and we are already on this way. And I am absolutely sure that we will succeed on our movement. Uh, One important issue, which also thanks to your support, that is the Ukraine Energy Support Fund, which I want to mention separately. So it's already accumulated more than 300 millions of euros. And this money is used for supporting Ukraine energy companies, for supporting Ukraine energy system. And that is very important that we, first of all, with your support, we created this mechanism which really allowed us to withstand the previous winter, and I'm sure that we will withstand this winter also. Of course, in the green transition and clean energy partnership and all the goals of the clean energy, it's very important to implement the legislation, to implement the rules which would allow to create the necessary conditions for development of the sphere. And that is also very important, and you mentioned it, that we are not stopping. I mean, we are not stopping during the war, so we are not waiting until we win the war and then just start some transformation or start some reform. So we are doing it now, and I just want to mention that I remember the last winter under the shellings we drafted a lot of laws in the bomb shelters, but we adopted this law, and that is the laws about the renewables, that is the remit laws, and now of course we're very glad that in the latest EU enlargement report mentioned that the energy is the most advanced in the European integration process. And but we are not supposed to stop. And of course, we need to draft some additional legislation to implement, to make the roadmaps for implementation of the already adopted legislation. And we are on the way. And that is very important. Of course, it's the financial issue is really important, and that is also connected to the reforms. And that's why we are not talking only about the regulational reforms, but we are talking also about the corporate governance reforms. So we are moving on this road also, and I'm sure that we would, at the beginning of the next year, we will do main important steps in reforming the corporate governance when we are talking especially in the energy sector. Of course, the Clean Energy Partnership will serve as a forum for discussion, coordination, and knowledge sharing. And that's important for us also because we really want to implement in Ukraine the best practices, to implement in Ukraine the best innovation in the renewables. And it's very important for us, especially when we are talking about the recovery of the energy system. And that is really a huge potential for this. And we really want to achieve the goal that Ukraine would become the energy hub for Europe. We have all conditions for this. And of course, we understand that we need to involve as much as our partners in construction in Ukraine, in partnership, in production of spare parts, in all kind of generation and transmission companies. What is very important because we really want to get the best practices and to implement the best practices in Ukraine. Thank you for attention, and I am sure that this solidarity which we have, I know that a lot of friends now in this forum, and I just feel this support with you. I feel this support to our country, to our energy system, and I'm very grateful to all of you. And once again, have a fruitful discussion. And I hope that next forum I will be present tete-a-tete, I mean, on the meetings after our victory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. This applause is for you, and thank you very much that you, one more time, emphasizes the importance of unity for sustainable recovery of energy sector. And I would like to inform each of you that tomorrow in Ukrainian pavilion, there will be an event during which Ministry will present the scenarios for achieving net zero by our energy sector. So I cordially invite you to this event as well. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Mrs. Kadri. This was our two keynote speakers. Please applause one more time. Yeah. I would like to emphasize one more time that today's event is devoted to Clean Energy Partnership Initiative. It's the synergy of international partners, of international supporters of Ukraine's sustainable recovery. This initiative unites those international partners that are ready to respond immediately to our needs, not waiting for the end of the war, for better conditions, for better investment environment, but respond and act today. And I would like to introduce our high-level speakers of this panel. Please applause the Ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt, Assistant Secretary of State for Energy Resources, the USA. Mr. Andrew Light, Assistant Secretary for Energy for International Affairs, the USA. Mr. Ahmed Badr, the Director of Project Facilitation Division IRANA. Mrs. Lee McDonough, Director General for Net Zero, Nuclear and International Energy at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, the United Kingdom. And Christina Lobilla, the Director of the EU Energy Platform Task Force, European Union. So I would like to start with you, Mr. Pyatt, and with the USA, our big supporter and big supporter of our future victory. How the United States, as a member of this clean energy initiative, cooperate with international community and boost the sustainable recovery of Ukraine's energy sector? And what is your plans how to follow our immediate needs and also the long-term priorities?
Thank you, Katerina. And I thought Minister Holoshenko and Commissioner Simpson really framed it nicely, so I can be pretty brief in answering your question. The first and most important thing I would emphasize is that energy is absolutely central, both to defeating Vladimir Putin and his war of aggression against Ukraine, but also assisting the Ukrainian people to build the European future that they've chosen. So we on the US government side have been focused on trying to attack both of those problems simultaneously. In terms of defeating Putin, we are very cognizant of what the Kremlin is trying to do by weaponizing winter, by attacking Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure and trying to break the will of the Ukrainian people. That campaign began October last year. It failed last winter. It's going to fail this winter. I was glad that Minister Holoshenko referred to our G7 Plus coordination group, which is an initiative that has now grown up to 18 countries and 5 international organizations who together have mobilized more than $1 billion of energy sector assistance to help the incredibly brave Ukrainian energy workers from DTEC, from Ukrenergo, from the Obolenergos, who have been out under fire, helping to maintain the integrity of Ukraine's grid, to rebuild what Putin has destroyed, and to ensure that the Kremlin's effort to weaponize the winter will be unsuccessful. Andrew will be able to talk about what Department of Energy did specifically in support of that effort, but what I would emphasize is how significant the U.S. assistance to that effort has been. We have already spent more than $500 million on energy sector support. We have another $522 million in the pipeline already approved by Congress, which is dispersing now. And President Biden's latest national security supplemental request to Congress includes additional energy sector funds. We want to make sure that everything we are doing over the short term to help maintain the integrity of the energy system is also consistent with your long-term vision. And I think one of the really remarkable aspects of this whole story is the degree to which, even in the face of this war of aggression, Ukraine has maintained its focus on building a future energy system which is cleaner, greener, more resilient, decentralized, and fully aligned with the European Union. I would conclude by emphasizing 2 points. One is the importance of what Commissioner Simpson talked about in terms of Ukraine's European pathway. It is the greatest honor of my professional career that I was U.S. ambassador in Ukraine during the Euromaidan. And we just passed the 10th anniversary of that remarkable outpouring of national sentiment. Ukrainians have made incredible sacrifices, and I think the fact that you now have this pathway forward, you have a pathway to EU full membership, is extremely important and is the greatest revenge on Putin and what he has tried to do to your country. But I think it's also equally important, and I was very glad that Minister Holoshenko talked about the issue of reform, because part and parcel of that EU accession process is reform of Ukraine's state institutions. The energy sector is central in that regard. Corporate governance reform at Energoatom, at Ukrenergo, at Naftogaz, the decentralization of the system, the remit legislation that the minister referred to. These are all difficult steps, but they are exactly what will ensure that Ukraine is firmly aligned with the European Union and that your EU accession proceeds as fast as possible. So let me just conclude in answer to your question, I mean, what the United States is doing is standing with the people of Ukraine. I know there's a lot of attention to our debate at home in the United States about support to Ukraine. I'm quite confident that our Congress is going to yet again step forward. The American people understand that what's happening in Ukraine is a fundamental test of our values and of the international system in which the United States has invested so much. I think if there's one thing we've underestimated during this period, it is the obsession, the brutality of Vladimir Putin, his willingness to drive past every norm of civilized behavior. And we all, I think, now understand that if he's not defeated in this campaign, it will represent a fundamental threat to everything that Europe represents, everything that my country stands for, and what the Ukrainian people have sacrificed so greatly to achieve.
Great, thank you, Ambassador Pyatt. And I have a counter question to your colleague, Mr. Light, regarding in continuation to the clean energy partnership nature. And also the Ambassador Pyatt said that our G7 plus partners repeatedly underline the importance of diversification, decentralization, and decarbonization of our energy system. So how the United States support these efforts? And what should be the priority steps to further develop our country as a future powerhouse of Europe? Also, to keep the light on in Ukrainian houses this winter.
Thank you very much, Katerina. I would like everyone to please give a round of applause for our colleagues here from the Ministry of Energy and all the Ukrainians who are in the audience for their heroism, frankly, in the face of this immoral, illegal, impossible attack on their energy system. We are with you every single day. There's not almost a day that goes by that Jeff and I don't talk about what we can do and how we can do more and wishing we could do more, frankly. And I think we're all there. I had the great good fortune in August 2021 to travel with Secretary Granholm, my boss, Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, to Kyiv for the 30th anniversary of independence to represent President Biden there, also for President Zelensky's Crimea Forum to remind the world that they were an occupied country then. And I have to say that it was an eye-opening experience in many ways. The first thing is that actually it absolutely demonstrated to me, Katerina, that Ukraine was destined, given your resources, to become a clean energy powerhouse and net energy exporter to the rest of Europe. And we committed ourselves then to do everything we could before the first soldier crossed the line in this most recent war, before the first drone was launched, to make sure that that happened in many ways. And I'll give you an example of that in just a second. Obviously, there's been setbacks. And I have to say that it is no accident that Russia has started this as an energy war. They did the same thing in Crimea, starting it as a cyber attack on the energy grid. And in fact, when we were with Minister Halushenko and the team at the Ministry of Energy, they warned us and every other party that was at the table that you cannot trust the Russians, you cannot trust them you cannot trust them to deliver security of supply. On the gas side, they have come after us many times, and they will come after you, and you are absolutely right. And it was only because of that meeting, because that in that one trip, that I felt I was a little bit prepared to take on what would happen as the war broke out early the next year. So I'll just give you two examples. Jeff mentioned we're now over $1 billion in spending just on energy. There's so many things that we are committed to doing. From our part, from the Department of Energy, we have been working closely with the Ministry of Energy, with the Ministry of Reconstruction and Infrastructure, with the National Security Council, with others to develop very detailed plans of what needs to be happen. And we started actually with about a year ago when the first targeted attacks happened on the grid. And these are diabolical. I have to say, as an energy expert, I'm almost in awe of the fact of the decision to attack the grid as the first thing, because there are so many more targets. What the Russians are doing in attacking the grid, which forces the Ukrainians to push blackouts to keep the grid stable, which threatens sanitation, water, and heating supply, is effectively a direct attack on the cities, is a direct attack on the civilian population. And the world needs to recognize that. And that needs to be part of what we think of when we pulled together to do something about it. Seeing that, my office, the first thing we did, which is something we've never in the history of the Department of Energy done, surged almost 900 pieces of high voltage electricity equipment that were donated from American utilities and American energy equipment producers. And in talking to those CEOs to find what spare equipment they had around that we could pack up and ship over to Ukraine, they were very clear that what needed to happen was that Ukraine needed to have a more distributed grid to survive this kind of attack. And I think we see that now, and I would sort of say that that is one of the most important things we could see in the reconstruction that must begin now and not wait for Victory Day. It must not wait, it must continue now. We've done two major pieces of work. One is called the Independent Energy System Assessment, which was just released and transferred to our colleagues in the Ministry of Energy to 2025. We looked at 4 sectors: nuclear, oil and natural gas, bulk power, and distributed energy resources, and measured them against 4 criteria. Does some change enhance energy sector resilience? Does it produce adequacy, so producing enough electricity? Does it improve our ability to integrate more variable sources of energy, like renewables, into the Ukrainian grid? And finally, does it allow Ukraine to be in a position to export energy, as they actually were in the first year of the war? Do not forget, before the attack started on the grid, they were exporting to Europe, and to get them in that capacity again. So those have been the priorities. The second thing we did is that we immediately after that August trip recruited Ukraine to our premier program that the Department of Energy created as part of the G7 partnership, partnership on infrastructure, on global infrastructure, is to bring Ukraine into what we call our net zero world family. So we've created a consortium of 10 of our national labs. We created a 30-person Ukraine team to help Ukraine right now begin to make that transition. And not only to focus on what are the steps along the way that will get them to the position to meet those criteria, but also what are the investment pathways that will more likely to attract investment. And they join other countries that we see that are not going through anything like what Ukraine is going through: Indonesia, Nigeria, Egypt, Chile, Argentina, Thailand. And we think that with those tools, they will be able to move forward. There is so much more that we need to do there, but we do want to tell you that all of you who are thinking about how you can best assist the Ukrainians, we have answers to what would be the priorities if they work for the Ukrainians. So the last thing I want to say is this, which is winter is here. We absolutely know it's going to be far worse than the attacks last year because Ukraine is starting from a much larger deficit. So for all of you, I would urge you to please be heroes, like our colleagues in the Ministry of Energy and the other Ukrainians in the audience. Join them and make sure that they get through this transition and are able to rebuild and become that clean energy exporter that they can be for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Light. And you know, I prepared one phrase, but for the end of this event. But I would like to tell it now. The Ukraine is standing now because all our partners standing for us. And I would like to thank you, not as a representative of Ministry of Energy, including but not as a Ukrainian citizenship. Thank you very much for your support because, yeah, it's really, our existence depends on it. So thank you. And Mr. Ahmed, you, at this panel, you represent not the country, but the organization that is a member of Clean Energy Partnership Initiative. So what basically the main role of IRANAS in this partnership, and what is your priorities for boost the sustainable recovery of Ukraine's energy sector? How do you want to push this?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this important panel. Actually, I had the honor and the privilege to represent IRENA, supporting great people of Ukraine. Actually, I was visiting Ukraine last August. I've seen the situation in the ground, and actually it was very important for us because IRENA is not a bank, but IRENA is mainly working to ensure there's conducive, attracting business environment for MDBs, for IFIs, for large corporates, for all investors to come and invest in Ukraine, mainly through private sector. So the support of IRENA to Ukraine is basically moving now in 3 parallel directions. We already started to act on since I was there in August. And I have really to give the all privilege for the encouragement we had from Department of State, from US government, basically, who will basically put us on the right track for being in the Clean Energy Partnership. So first track was basically to work with our partners from Government of Iceland, who our climate envoy for Iceland is here with us, Mr. Benedict Hutchinson, was basically, we had worked since the beginning to ensure there is a complete understanding on how the decarbonization of economy of Ukraine is on the right track, even with the current hard time that Ukraine is facing. And actually, this has been called us to arrange for immediate capacity building and to work with our partners from the government of Ukraine. And really, I have to say that we had very good session in our offices in Bonn, from private and public sector, from the government of Ukraine, as well as private sector. The good thing is that actually private sector there are very eager to support their country. We've seen a lot of private sector investors are in, and in our pipeline under the financing facility that's called the ITAF under IRENA, we have now more than 750 megawatt of wind energy, onshore wind. That's basically, we are in the preparation stage to present them to our partners. And very soon, actually by tomorrow, we are going to have EBRD and World Bank joining our financing platform, and these 2 projects will be presenting to them. Because the developers in Ukraine are really very eager to support their country, and this is something I have to say that it's really a very good notion that private sector developers of Ukraine supporting their country, as well as foreign direct investors from other countries, including the Gulf corporate partners are with us on that front as well. So this is first front, 700 megawatt, is basically under final assessment to present it to partners. I mean ITA partners, which is our platform for financing project in IRENA. The second one is the capacity building. And here is I have to stop to highlight very important issue. The Ministry of Energy, they are doing their best to follow several tracks on how to attract the private sector to invest. I have to say it's not easy. There is a lot of building blocks. We are working hard. We know very well that in IRENA we can do that very quickly, but we have to keep in mind 2 things. Building brains and investment plans, I wouldn't say take years, but with Ukrainian commitment from the Ministry of Energy, is really taking at least 1 year from now. We are working on it. We are on it. And basically the second one that we are taking the lead under Clean Energy Partnership is building what we call it Decarbonization Fund of Ukraine, or UDF. And the concept in a very high level had been started. For sure we are finalizing that, and within the early spring 2024 we are going to be ready in partnership with the government of Ukraine and other partners. For the time being, we are basically putting the elements through 3 directions for this UDF. Number 1, it's going to be led by private sector, local financial institutions from Ukraine, plus the partners. Without these 2 elements of very clear investment plans that we are building now with the government of Ukraine, as well as the local financing institutions and the private sector developers in Ukraine, which I can tell and I confirm they are very interested and they are eager and they're working with us with the Ministry of Energy. Private sector the foreign direct investors from our financing facility and our convening bar as IRENA is there with them. So I'm here to convey a very clear message that we are moving in a very fast track. In IRENA, we are very agile. We already delivered more than 1,000 megawatt for the financing platform. But more importantly, I have to say it's not alone with our partners, because again, we are not banking. We are building the conducive environment, and we are doing that now. So I don't want to take long by intervention, but I wanted to say finally that I believe by our General Assembly, which is coming April, we will be presenting the full concept of Ukraine Decarbonization Fund, and it's going to happen in UE as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. And also, we are all well aware about the fact that Irena Amun is like expert assistant, also provide the practical tool, the practical financial tool for sustainable recovery. For example, the ETAF platform. And I think that this platform is also could be really useful for the Clean Energy Partnership Initiative activity. So, Mrs. Lee, I think it's time to present the Clean Energy Partnership, its objectives, achievements, and plans for further activities, because I would like to mention that today's event is an interim one between the London and Berlin, Ukraine's conference on recovery, and the Clean Energy Partnership. First of all, it's a practical result of London conference. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you, and it's great to be here this afternoon. Thanks to our organisers from the Ministry of Energy for Ukraine and the EU for bringing us together today. I'm really proud to be standing alongside G7 Plus partners and reaffirming our unwavering support for Ukraine in the face of the unrelenting Russian attacks, including on the energy infrastructure. Many people have spoken about the immediate significant emergency assistance that we gave to Ukraine to support. So I won't dwell on that, other than to say the UK committed £140 million since the invasion to support energy sector recovery, and also, like the US, mobilised to get equipment over there as soon as possible. So, you know, absolutely committed to doing that. What I wanted to really focus on was looking beyond the immediate actions, and just to say the UK remains committed to Ukraine's long-term recovery and supports their ambition to build a more modern, green, net zero ready energy system. And at the London Ukraine Recovery Conference that Katerina referred to in June of this year, we launched the Innovate Ukraine Green Energy Challenge Fund and announced a partnership with the International Finance Corporation to mobilise this private finance to support investments in energy security. And the G7 Plus also committed to creating the Clean Energy Partnership that has been referred to. And this is designed to help Ukraine meet and reinforce its climate objectives and deliver on its energy transition. And I think this is a really strong demonstration of our collective commitments to providing Ukraine with long-term support. And actually, I think we should be really excited about Ukraine's huge potential as an energy hub for the region. Ukraine is already sending electrons to Moldova and its EU neighbours, and it could expand grid connections, interconnections, and fully integrate its power market with the rest of Europe. And building a new energy system from the ground up actually presents just a really significant opportunity to plan strategically from the grid through to the rest of the energy system, so that we have one in place that can deliver on our net zero future. Ukraine also has the largest gas storage capacity in Europe and is already using it this winter to bolster European energy security. And as others have mentioned, I mean, amazing achievements, that the first phase of the Tyligulska wind farm is, you know, progressing and is set to be the largest in the country. Really fantastic progress. I also think for Ukraine there is significant potential for CO2 storage, as well as nuclear expertise and critical minerals reserves, which are essential, as we know, to deliver on our renewable technology expansion. And all of this together will play a really crucial role in securing Ukraine's prosperity and our collective European clean energy future. However, realising this ambition will not be possible without creating the right environment for private sector investments. And at the London Ukraine Recovery Conference, the UK was really proud to support Ukraine in developing and presenting their ambitious Energy to 2050 strategy. This highlighted the key goals for Ukraine by 2050 to be a hub for carbon-free electricity and gas in Europe, and for 100% of electricity and heat to be generated from carbon-neutral sources, and also to be a cluster for production and export of equipment and components for the green energy transition. It also highlighted the work that is needed to make this a reality, including the hundreds of billions of investments that is needed in Ukraine's energy recovery and to deliver on the transformation by 2050. And through the Clean Energy Partnership, we want to work together to catalyse and maximise investment in support of this strategy, mobilising the private sector to invest in Ukraine's long-term future. So the Clean Energy Partnership is going from strength to strength. If you could put the slide up, please. I've been asked to say that. It's going from strength to strength, and we are proud to welcome new members to the partnership, the World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation, the UN Global Compact's Ukraine Energy Initiative, and IRENA as well, which we're very delighted about. And it's as this expanded group, the Clean Energy Partnership is today publishing a statement to recognise Ukraine's progress on key reforms and the significant investments from international partners in Ukraine's clean energy future. We also reaffirm our collective and unwavering long-term support to Ukraine. So I would like to finish by congratulating the government of Ukraine for making such significant progress on reforms and for finalising the 2050 energy strategy, providing investors with the certainty they need to invest. The Clean Energy Partnership is really proud to be supporting these efforts. So the next Ukraine Recovery Conference, as you said, will be hosted by Germany next year, and we really look forward to seeing continued, in fact, accelerated progress as we move forward. And we are resolute that we will continue to stand firmly with Ukraine and ensure that the long-term vision for a clean, modern, integrated energy system is realised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Lee. On behalf of the Ministry of Energy, I also invite each stakeholder of Ukraine's recovery to join this statement, to join this initiative, to deliver and act together. And of course, it's really clear that this partnership is of critical importance for Ukraine. But I'm also interested in what this partnership means also for its members. Oh my God, it's for happiness, I think. So I also interested in what this partnership means for its members. So Mrs. Christina, you represent the European Union, and the European Union is also a member of Clean Energy Partnership. So what this partnership is mean for the European Union?
Thank you very much, Katarina, and I want also to thank Commissioner Simpson and Minister Halushenko for opening this event. Also, my partners here, the other panelists, and I want to welcome our friends from Ukraine, from the Ministry, DTEC, and welcome particularly to this panel. When it comes to our bilateral cooperation with Ukraine, we have a very well-established framework. And as Commissioner Simpson mentioned, in very challenging times, the European Union and its member states, we managed to provide 80 billion to support Ukraine. But obviously, this goes beyond our borders. We need to make sure that the entire international community of donors, we act and we move in the same direction and we speak with one single voice. And I think that the Clean Energy Initiative is fundamental for that. When the war started, and even today, but I think that we all international donors, we provided, in particular, the immediate equipment that's what needed to keep the energy system functioning, resilient, and efficient. But we need to go beyond that. We need to ensure that the broader objective of decarbonization, green reconstruction, green recovery, market integration with the EU is doable and is made as soon as possible. For us, this initiative that is coordinated by our UK friends and also in the context of the G7 Plus group, we consider that one of the main roles, the main purpose is just to make sure that we have consistency of approach and objectives. From the European Union perspective, we are working now very closely with our friends from the Ministry of Energy in Ukraine, in particular in the very last steps of the National Plan for Energy and Climate, the roadmap for decarbonization that we have worked together, and will continue to do so with you bilaterally, but also in consistency with all members of the Clean Energy Partnership. So for Europe, this initiative is paramount, and Ukraine, our friends, you can have the security that will continue support you in the context of this initiative and in all the initiatives that we have launched with Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I would like to kindly ask you to one more time applaud to our high-level speakers for their excellent speeches and for all this support that you all provide to us. You make really your best and you evaluate the essential reforms and you boost Ukraine to move further to a better future, to more sustainable, inclusive green path. So thank you very much for this. Dear audience, now we will have just a 10 minutes technical break. So please stay with us, stay with Ukraine, and we will continue our physical discussion. Thank you very much. Я хочу. Welcome back to the physical dialogue at this great studio, and we start the second and last part of today's event dedicated to the priority steps to unlock sustainable financing for sustainable recovery of Ukraine. And I would like to introduce our honored speakers, Alfonso Garcia Mora, Vice President for Europe, Latin America and the Caribbean, International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group. Please applause. Yeah, great. Mr. Harry Boyd Carpenter, Managing Director, Climate Strategy and Delivery, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Svetlana Grinchuk, Deputy Minister for Energy of Ukraine. Maxim Timchenko, CEO of Ukrainian private company DTEC. And Yorgo Chatsimarkakis, CEO of Hydrogen Europe. So I would like to start this part from the quote of Mark Carney, the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance, who said once at the World Economic Forum that we need to build a new financial system to fund an energy transition on the scale of the Industrial Revolution, at the speed of digital transformation. In other words, Mr. Carpenter said that if you are making investments, coming up with new technologies, if you're changing the way you do business, and do your best to eliminate the climate crisis and loss of biodiversity, then you create the commercial value. So I would like to make this quote as a background for today's discussion. And I would like to start from IFC. Mr. Garcia Mora, IFC is also a member of Clean Energy Partnership that we mentioned during the previous panel. And a few weeks ago, IFC released the report entitled Private Sector Opportunities for a Green and Resilient Reconstruction in Ukraine. And in this report, the IFC's experts present two scenarios for attracting private investment for sustainable recovery of Ukraine. According to the no reform scenario, Ukraine could attract around $73 billion of private investments, while under the scenario with active reforms, this amount could be doubled and reached to $130 billion. So if we will consider the second scenario, so with active reforms, what are the preconditions to make this scenario realistic? And what is the role of IFC in boosting sustainable financing for recovery?
Thank you very much for the question. So that reform scenario probably was not as ambitious as what Mark Carney would like to see, to call it the new revolution. But I think it's quite focused on what we believe could be done in the restructuring and the recovery of Ukraine. Because there is one thing that we believe is fundamentally relevant or important in these days, no? Which is normally it is very difficult to take reforms or the difficult reforms, to make the difficult reforms if they are not taken in the difficult moments. No? So probably we are at the best moment that we could have thought to do it. But let me take one step back. So we differentiate what IFC can do in Ukraine, and I'm going to be very realistic on two different terms. No? One thing is the short term, and the other one is the medium term. In the short term, what we are focusing is in two different areas. No? One is modular solar and battery storage, so trying to really find solutions that can live with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and that we can still help to maintain the energy production and consumption in the country. Which of course limits any capex or fixed assets investment as of today. So modular solar or battery storage is a solution that we are exploring with Escatec. We did something similar in Africa, and we are now looking for what will be the perfect location or the best locations in Ukraine. And the second is the captive generation. So thinking on how firms can really use part of the or change part of the the energy, the plans that they have to create more self-sustained energy. No? We did a recent investment with EBRD and DFC in MHP, which precisely, this is one of the key issues of the investment, was to increase, to upgrade and expand the biogas plant that they have. So this is the short term, what we can really do given the current situation. But what you were mentioning, which are the reforms and what the capital that could be private capital that could be attracted for the medium term, I think that the key thing here is the reform agenda. No? Reform agenda to really think on how can we create bankable projects that can attract this private capital. No? And what are the key things or what are the key reforms? You mentioned the numbers, no? Which I think is quite important. Actually, out of the report that we did, the analysis that we did, the sector that can attract more private capital if we do the necessary reforms is precisely the energy sector. So it's the one that we can gain more by doing the reforms that are pending. And there are 4 things that we identified as critical reforms. One is enabling the price formation for the wholesale market to promote competition and support investment. And I think that the government has already taken good decisions in terms of increase the price caps, etc. But there is more that will need to be. But I'm eating the mic, so I don't know how much. Further, like this? Okay.
Like, yes.
Second,
Yeah.
allowing private participation in Ucrernigro, which I think is quite important, is the national transmission operator. And it is very important to open for private participation because it will help us to really move the needle and to really integrate at large scale any renewable energy that we can think. Third is to continue thinking on how we can create bankable projects precisely on renewable energy. IFC has invested in the last 10 years more than $11 billion in renewable energy in developing countries, and we believe that the potential that exists in Ukraine is huge. But we have to do the necessary reforms in this regard to create this or to generate these bankable projects. The third one is allowing private participation in modernization of district heating systems. And this is also very important. So far, we have a monopoly in the municipalities that do not allow private competition or private capital to come in. No? Eliminating these monopolies on heat supply will open a market that can really attract a big amount of private capital. No? And then the last one is introducing incentives and standards to promote energy efficiency, which is something that we had already, or Ukraine had already start working, but the potential is much higher if we go in that direction. No? All in all, I think that this is what gives us the $136 billion of potential private capital attraction. And the second part of your question, and I will finish with this, is what is the role of DFIs, of MDBs in this regard? I think at least 3 things. One, to mobilize this private capital, we will need anchor investors. So we will need MDBs, DFIs, to come into the market, to buy part of the bonds or loans that we need, or provide the loans that we need, and by that to signal to the market that we are there, and therefore to bring or to multiply the effect or the attraction of other or mobilization of other private capital. Second, the structuring. I think that we have to take into consideration this or to put in value this experience that MDBs and DFIs have to really structure the solutions in the most efficient way. And third is all related with ESG and due diligence. This is going to be critical, especially in the current context, and this is not easy, especially, as I said, in the context that we have today in Ukraine. No? So that analysis, that ESG analysis, is going to be fundamental in order to provide or to mobilize private capital. And the last one is concessional finance, that we will need EBRD, DFC, IFC. It's not going to be easy to actually find the money and attract the money and the private capital that we need if it is not with the use of private capital, concessional finance. No? And I think that partnerships like the one that we are signing and doing today is precisely going in the right direction on how to bring together the public sector, the private sector, to discuss the reforms that are needed to mobilize private capital.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia Mora. So the sustainable financing, it's not just an investment, it's a down payment to planet where the profit and purpose are closely linked. And in this regard, I would like to pass the floor to EBRD. So EBRD, which work with Ukraine for more than 3 decades, stipulates in the London Recovery Conference that it is ready to support the Building Back Better in Ukraine. So my question is whether the Build Back Better is also mean the Build Back Greener and Build Back Sustainably, and what is you see the priority steps to how to unlock and how to fix the sustainable financing for this recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I should say that before I took over this role at EBRD, which I currently have, which is running the climate team, I was the director for energy for the region that included Ukraine. And I can tell you after 4 years of that, I know how tough and smart the Ukrainian energy sector is. I have the bruises to show for it. So it's a very, very intelligent, robust, imaginative, clever energy sector. You're an impressive group.
Svetlana, I think it's compliment to you. And also to Maxim, yes.
In my current role, it's definitely a compliment. In my previous role, it was, it was also, I suffered. So what is EBRD? I mean, as you said, EBRD has been working in Ukraine for 30 years. Ukraine is in our DNA. I mean, the relationship between the bank and the country is so strong. It means so much to us. And I hope you've seen that in the response of EBRD to the invasion by Russia. And we've committed that over 2022 and 2023, we would provide $3 billion of financing to support Ukraine, and we've delivered that. Very little of that has been green, I have to be honest. It's not been about building back better. It's been about supporting Ukraine in a crisis moment. Much of that has been financing for the energy sector in form of liquidity for Naftogaz, for Ukrenergo, and we're looking at some similar transactions going forward. I think even more importantly, as a demonstration of support, our shareholders voted this year, or our Board of Governors voted this year to award us a capital increase specifically intended in order to ensure we can continue that level of support for Ukraine and step up that level in a reconstruction. And that's a very powerful statement of support from our 70-odd shareholders. What will we do in building back better? Yes, of course, when we build back better, we really will build back better. I never understood it when it was talked about with COVID, because things weren't destroyed. But sadly, in Ukraine, a lot has been destroyed, and building back better means an enormous amount now, and it means building back sustainably, building back green. What does that mean in detail? I don't know. I think, we are largely a private sector bank, like IFC, and that means that we're responsive to clients, we're responsive to opportunities. We also know that the story of Ukraine's resistance to date is one of imagination, of innovation, of flexibility. And what that tells me is that there will be opportunities to support Ukraine that we don't imagine right now, or that will come, that will come out of the blue. So the onus on us is to be dynamic, to be flexible. But there's one overarching theme, which is that in a world heading on a green transition, Ukraine has some very good opportunities. It has enormous potential in that world. Because it will be integrated into a European market, it's already integrated into a European energy market, it will increasingly be integrated into the European economy. Because it has enormous renewable energy potential, fantastic wind in many places, good solar, good biomass. Because it has a large industrial base that is ready for transformation into green industry. And I'm not going to try and talk about hydrogen, because with Yorgo here, you're always onto a loser trying to talk about hydrogen. He will know that, explain far more eruditely what the opportunities are. But the important message is that Ukraine has an opportunity to really win in this transition, to be a very powerful partner for the rest of Europe in that transition. And just to give you a few areas where we will focus, where we do expect opportunity, we have a very strong program called the Green Cities Program, where we systematically engage with cities to try to help them make a systemic transformation towards a greener way of running themselves and of supporting their citizens. 7 of those 60 green cities are in Ukraine, and we will see that as an absolute pillar of what we do, looking to build back those cities, to extend those cities in ways that embed green principles, whether it's in buildings efficiency or e-mobility or urban transport, or nature-based solutions for infrastructure needs. That will be very important. Buildings efficiency will be very important because there's an opportunity to really address the heating challenge at source by making sure that whatever you build is built to the highest possible standards, and we're working with the International Energy Agency on that. Renewable energy, of course, that will be an absolute building block. And then finally, the agribusiness sector. Ukraine has a huge, as you know, agricultural sector. Some of our most exciting projects, some of our most innovative and impressive clients are in that sector, and we see tremendous opportunity to transform that sector towards regenerative agriculture, perhaps even carbon farming. So those are some of the areas, but underlying all of them, I think, will be the resilience, the imagination, the talent of the Ukrainians displayed all the way before the war and even more so now.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Svetlana, I think that it's really clear that the attraction of sustainable financing is really impossible without the relevant political framework. And in my opinion, if Ukraine will demonstrate its intention and readiness to attract sustainable finance and will offer different strategies, pilot projects, concepts, and so on, then we will receive such a feedback from our investors. So does Ministry is really interested today to attract sustainable finances, or maybe it's not a matter for the country in war? And what basically the practical steps Ministry made to attract the sustainable finances now, not after the war, the end of the war, but now?
Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you, colleagues, for joining this very important for us meeting and for support the Clean Energy Partnership Platform. We established in London in Ukraine Recovery Conference, and I think today it's a middle point of these activities, and we could present the practical steps, the achievement, and I hope that in Berlin this summer, the next summer, we will present the good result of these partnerships. And for Ukraine, for the energy sector of Ukraine, it's very important to have this support. And as Minister Galushenko mentioned today, we feel this support every day from our partners, donors, financial institutes, governments, countries, people from different countries from all the world. And yes, for Ukraine, especially for energy, the Ministry of Energy, I want to highlight that Ukraine is committed to a green recovery because we don't have another way, yes. We lost a lot during this period when Russia started their attack, their full invasion. We lost more than 50% of our generation capacity. And despite the war, despite the very difficult circumstances, we understand that we need to continue our developing. We understand that we need to continue our reforming our energy sector. And for example, in April this year, under the attacks in shelter, in basement, we drafted and we adopted our energy strategy, new energy strategy till 2050. And I want to say that it will be, we want to achieve the climate neutral, sustainable, resilient energy till 2050. And I think with your support, we could do this. We see our energy sector like the partnership between renewables energy and nuclear energy with new technologies, and for tracking the sustainable finance, we continue developing the strategies, concepts, and we continue to cooperate with our partners and to show them that we are ready for the cooperation, for discussions. And for example, after the energy strategy, we adopted the new special and very important law for development of renewable energy. It's called Green Transition Law, and this law provides the opportunity for our energy companies to be a part of competition market, electricity market, and we will adopt all the and improve implement all the our European commitments in this law. Also, we drafted and we developed the new guidelines for tracking the sustainable finance, and we will present this document with special requirements and criteria of leading international financial institutions, potential partners and investors. which are necessary to obtain sustainable financing for the green energy projects, and we will present this document for our energy companies by the end of this year. And we want to start this cooperation with our partners and with our public and private business for attracting the sustainable finances. Also, we discussed with Irina, and we started today. Mohammed, he told that we have a big plan to establish the decarbonization fund for support Ukrainian renewable energy development, and I think we will have, and we did a lot, and we continue doing a lot for reforming our energy sector. And as Commissioner told today, and we discussed with colleagues from the energy, from the European Commission, that Ukraine energy sector could be like driver for European integration for all Ukraine, because we demonstrate the big progress together with our private sector and public companies. We demonstrate that we are ready, we understand how to work, how to develop, how to be in line with European and global trends, and I think it gives us a lot of opportunities to achieve all our goals together with our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Svetlana. We really have lack of time, but we still continue our event. Mr. Maxim, a year after the beginning of the war, you said that Ukraine continue to do the revolution in renewable energy instead of war. So is the revolution in finances also take place in Ukraine to get along with the revolution in renewable energy? And what basically should private business do to fix and unlock the sustainable financing for the recovery?
Thank you. Thank you for this question. It was difficult to imagine better group of people to discuss sustainable financing in Ukraine. So today we started with good news. We announced a very important agreement about building 384 megawatt of capacity in Telegul site to complete 500 megawatt wind farm with an investment of 450 million euro. And I'm really thankful to Danish government, European Commission, our partners Vestas, that we made such an important decision now, investing 450 million during the war, 100 kilometers from military front line, and this is just demonstration of our confidence in victory, our commitment to Ukraine, and our commitment to green transition and changes which so needed to our energy sector. And at the end of the day, I am participating with IFIs, government of Ukraine, private partners, so that I can say how it's called act now. We can act now. We can bring projects we have already in pipeline. More than 1,000 megawatt of wind and solar projects we have in pipeline. Energy battery storage we have in pipeline. All of these projects are bankable, what are requested by EBRD, EIB, and other institutions. So if we build partnership among those who are here, then in 1 year time, when we come to the COP29, and that's my dream, that we announce another project with cooperation with EBRD, IFC, EIB. We need more green renewable for hydrogen. And that will be our contribution, not only to green transition of Ukraine, but to the victory of Ukraine in this war.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chatzimarkakis, so the previous speaker has also mentioned the importance of the pilot projects for unlocking the sustainable finances. And you know that Ukraine was mentioned as a strategic partner for developing the hydrogen industry in Europe. So What opportunities do you see for financing green hydrogen in Ukraine, and most importantly, for the practical implementation of such projects? Because we really have such projects.
So first of all, Ukraine was at the beginning of our jump in the hydrogen strategy. When we were leapfrogging in 2020, it was together with Ukraine and the MENA region, and without Ukraine it wouldn't have been possible, so we are very thankful. DTEC is a member of ours. We have 530 members as Hydrogen Europe, and the Ukrainian membership is very, very strong, and from the beginning on very actively involved. We think that we should start, and you said it already, during the war. We cannot wait. I mean, we have had all these discussions, yeah, everything is ready in the drawer, let's wait until the war is over. No. We need to start now, and I'm happy to see big financial institutions being also ready to do it. What can we do, and why is it so important? First, Ukraine will be a big supplier of hydrogen direct, using the existing pipelines, and it's so important that the Central European Corridor was accepted in the PMI list of the European Union, of the European Commission. That's the precondition to get the funding and to be really connected. So congratulations, that's step number one. Second, this is also to go to the pull markets. Germany is the most important pull market. Germany has an enormous demand on hydrogen, and you have the direct connection there, and there are clear connections between the players. So we will support you by having off-take agreements that are for sure, not only by the government, but also by industry. Then there is the embedded hydrogen. Hydrogen is not only something that you can export directly, you can embed it into products like ammonia, Ukraine being one of the biggest agricultural countries in the world, ammonia being the basis of fertilizers. So this is also something to be deployed in the local, regional, national strategy as ammonia in Ukraine, and also to be exported, and even more so steel. You have steel, you have iron ore, you can reduce it directly there, and this is also important because it creates added value, it creates a possibility to reindustrialize the country immediately. But let me also say one truth. One truth is that we also look into Ukraine because of the low carbon possibilities with nuclear. Yeah? The combination of renewables and nuclear is ideal given the pipeline. Not many countries in Europe have this huge opportunity, and that's why we should openly talk about it. I have seen that Ukraine is also teaming up all the countries that are going for that zero and low carbon possibilities and technologies, and that makes hydrogen cheap, and that makes all the industrialization processes possible. And this is where we want to help together with the private industry, but also in strong and close cooperation with you. One word about financing. Both of you said it, and I say it clearly. We need green bonds. We have a 3-digit billion dollar or euro amount that we need to provide per year in order to retrofit the infrastructure, encompassing the pipeline, but also to rebuild Ukraine. We cannot do it with lots of money, also money or capital that is crowded in from private funds. This is only possible with EU-initiated Green Credit Market Union. That's the term. And we are fully supportive of that. We will fully also show that there will be immediate activity. It's not something which is without asset. We build pipelines. We build concrete assets with that. And this is why we will support you, and you should support the industry in this idea of the Green Credit Market Union with green bonds. We will see a victory, that's for sure. And with these activities, the victory will even come earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this great panel. I would like to finish this panel with like a formula of attracting sustainable financing. First of all, it's implementation of essential reforms. It's flexibility and renewable energy focus. It's attractive investment, politically investment attractive environment. It's innovation and courage to continue to implement and put into operation new green projects in Ukraine instead of war. And of course, it's put an eye to new perspective direction, for example, as green hydrogen, and not to make a division between colors, but to consider hydrogen as a general concept, which is carbon-free. So thank you very much for to the audience and to our speakers for today's event. It was a pleasure to have you all here. See you soon. Enjoy COP28 and enjoy Dubai. So have a nice evening. Thank you very much.